There is only one possibility, really. We looked at him, and I nodded. We must use force. The maximum number of masters on duty at any particular time was 4, but one only appeared occasionally. I think he was a supervisor of some kind. Usually there were 3 of them, but one of these would frequently be absent, taking a dip in a nearby garden pool. Even armed with the knowledge of that vulnerable spot between nose and mouth, the 6 of us could not hope to deal with more than 2 at a time. Under equal conditions, they would have been so much bigger and stronger than we were. With their artificial gravity, the contest would have been hopeless. We had no weapons and no means of making any. The moment we had chosen was roughly halfway through the middle shift of the day. It was necessary to be ready to act as soon as the 3rd master came up the ramp and headed for the garden pool, which meant that we had to cover within easy reach and observation of the entrance to the plant. Fritz solved the problem by getting us to cut branches from trees in the pool during the night and pile them in a heap. This was frequently done by way of pruning, and the branches left until a squad of slaves came to remove them. We could bank on their going unnoticed for a day at least. So, having been in turn to the communal place, we surreptitiously snuggled into the pile, which had something of the texture of seaweed, a clinging, loathsome rubberiness, which made the skin crawl. Fritz was in a position where he could look out, the rest of us deeply buried, and running, I thought, some risk of smothering if matters were too long delayed. The delay appeared to be very long indeed. I lay in this unpleasant nest, with nothing to see but the fronds in front of my face, dying to know what was happening outside, but not daring even to whisper a question. The stuff was getting sticky too, probably because it was decaying, which did not make the wait any more attractive. I found I had cramp in one leg, but could not move to ease it. The pain got worse. I would have to massage it. "Now!" Fred said. There was no one about. We raced for the ramp, or at least lumbered a little faster than usual. At the bottom we slowed. One master was in view, the other out of sight behind one of the machines. As we approached, he said, "What is it? You have some errand here?" A message, master. It is..." 3 of us simultaneously grabbed for tentacles. Fritz leapt, and the other 2 heaved with legs high still. It was over almost at once. Fritz struck hard at the weak spot, and with a single ear-splitting howl the master collapsed, sending us sprawling with a last convulsive action. We had thought the second one might be more of a problem, but in fact he proved easier. He came round from behind the machine, saw us standing by his fallen colleague, and asked, "What happened here?" We made the ritual bow of reverence. Fritz said, "The master is hurt, master. We do not know how." Once more, their absolute confidence in the devotion of their slaves gave us the chance we needed. Without hesitation or suspicion, he came forward and bent down slightly, probing at the other with his tentacles. That brought the openings, which were his nose and mouth, within easy reach of Fritz's fist, without him having to jump. This one dropped, without even crying out. "Drag them out of sight, behind the machine," Fritz ordered. "Then get on with the work." No urging was necessary. We had about half an hour before the 3rd master came back. 2 worked in the tunnel, bringing the containers out along the narrow ledge. The rest of us carried them and tipped them in. There were about 100 containers altogether. A dozen trips should do it. The colourless liquid splashed into the water, mixing in without trace. I ticked off my staggering runs. 9, 10, 11. The tentacle caught me without me even seeing it. The master must have come to the top of the ramp and for some reason paused to look down instead of proceeding with the usual slap of feet which we would have heard. It was the supervisor making one of his periodic visits. He obviously saw the procession of slaves with containers, saw the contents being tipped into the conduit, and was curious. He came down spinning, which was their equivalent of running, and was almost silent because only the point of one foot made intermittent contact with the ground, his tentacle around my waist. "Boy," he demanded, "what is this?" Where are the masters? Mario, who had been directly behind me, dropped his container and jumped at him. He was gripped by the second tentacle in mid-air. The one that held me bit in, squeezing breath from my body. I saw the other two coming up, but I could do nothing. I heard myself scream as the squeezing became unbearable. With his third tentacle, the master flailed at the Dutch boy, Jan, tossing him as though he were a doll against the nearest machine. He then picked up Carlos with it. The three of us were as helpless as trussed chickens. He did not know of the two in the tunnel, but that was small consolation. They would be bound to check the water. We had come so close to success. And now... Jan was struggling to his feet. I was upside down, my masked head brushing against the lower part of the master's body. I saw Jan getting a hand on something, a bolt of metal about 6 inches long and a couple of inches thick, which was used for adjusting one of the machines. And I remembered, before he was switched to this expedition, he had been preparing for a possible entry in the games as a discus thrower. But if the master saw him... I reached down and wrenched the nearest stubby leg, trying to dig my nails in. It had as little effect as a gnat biting a car horse. He must have been aware of it, though, because the tentacle tightened again. I yelled in pain. The agony increased. I was on the point of blacking out. I saw Jan twist his body, tense it for the throw. Then came oblivion. I recovered to find myself propped against one of the machines. Rather than waste time trying to revive me, they had very properly just got on with the job. I was bruised, and when I drew back breath it was like inhaling fire. The master lay not far from me on the floor, oozing a greenish liquor from a gash just below the mouth. I watched, dazed, as the last of the containers was tipped in. Fritz came up and said, "Get all the empty containers back to the tunnel, in case another of them comes." He saw that I was conscious. "How are you feeling, Will?" "Not so bad." "Have we really done it?" He looked at me, and a rare grin spread over his long face. "I think we have. I really think we have."
All